today, we're piecing together a mystery, and we're doing it using the scattered, frankly terrifying notes left behind by a dead man. Now, this isn't just some story. Think of it as an investigation into a secret so massive it could completely shatter our understanding of reality itself. I want you to think about something. What if everything you believe to be solid and real, all of our science, our history, what if it's all just a thin, fragile sheet of ice covering a deep, dark ocean of chaos? And what if, just beneath that surface, ancient, impossibly powerful things are just waiting? That's the question that kicks this whole terrifying journey off. So our story starts with an inheritance. A pretty quiet academic guy inherits the papers of his late great-uncle, a Professor Angel. And what he finds locked away in the professor's study is, well, it's anything but academic. He finds this locked box, and inside, there are no family heirlooms. No, it's more like a puzzle, a really disturbing one. There's a pile of strange notes, newspaper clippings from all over the world about sudden outbreaks of madness, and right in the middle of it all, this bizarre little sculpture made of clay. You just know, right away, this is more than some research project. This is a rabbit hole. Okay, so the first major piece of this puzzle is what the professor called the dreamer and the clay. It's about this worldwide psychic fever. The first file our narrator opens is about a young, sensitive artist, a guy named Henry Anthony Wilcox, and this is where a personal nightmare starts to look like a global catastrophe. See, Wilcox wasn't just having bad dreams. It was more like his brain was picking up a signal. He was having these vivid dreams of what he called cyclopean cities, these massive, impossible structures. And he was hearing this voice that wasn't a voice. It wasn't a sound, you know? It was a chaotic feeling that just flooded his mind. And it drove him to sculpt what he was seeing. And yeah, what he made was that exact clay sculpture from the professor's box. Now, here's where the professor's notes get really chilling. He puts together a timeline. March 1st, Wilcox starts having these dreams, okay? But then, around March 23rd, newspapers from all over the world start reporting a huge spike in hysteria, nightmares, artists and poets going completely mad. It's like a psychic plague. Then, get this, on April 2nd, it all just stops. Wilcox wakes up totally fine. And on that exact same day, a massive freak storm hits the Pacific Ocean. That is no coincidence. So you have to wonder, right? What if Wilcox wasn't the source of the madness? What if his sensitive mind was just an antenna, a psychic receiver picking up a signal from somewhere else? A signal powerful enough to drive the whole world mad. Professor Angel sure thought so. And that belief led him from an artist's nightmares to something much more real and much more violent. This brings us to the second major part of the professor's files, an ancient global cult. Turns out Professor Angel had seen this strange idol years before Wilcox ever dreamed of it. And his source wasn't an artist. It was a hardened police inspector who stumbled onto something awful in the swamps of Louisiana. The notes flash back to an academic meeting where this inspector, a guy named LaGrasse, shows off an idol he confiscated during a raid on a truly depraved cult. The things he and his men saw out there, we're talking unspeakable rituals and human sacrifice. These people weren't just crazy. They were organized. They were worshiping something. But here is the moment that blows the whole case wide open. As Inspector LaGrasse describes the chant the cultists were screaming, another professor in the room freezes. He'd heard it before. He pulls out his notes from a cult he studied in Greenland, and it's the exact same guttural phrase. Louisiana, Greenland, half a world apart. Suddenly, this isn't some local problem. This is a global conspiracy, ancient, hidden, and everywhere. So who were they worshiping? The captured cultists called them the Great Old Ones, ancient, godlike beings who came from the stars eons ago. They used to rule the earth, and now they lie in a death-like sleep in deep, hidden places, just waiting to wake up and take it all back. And that chant? It's basically a prayer that gives their high priest a name. In his house at Riley, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming. Which brings us to the third and final document in the box, the one that connects the psychic madness and the ancient cults to a real-world event. This is the first-hand account, the sailor's log, that provides the last, terrifying piece of the puzzle. Our narrator finds a final clue, a small newspaper clipping about a ship found adrift in the Pacific. There's only one survivor, a Norwegian sailor named Gustav Johansen. He's alive, but completely traumatized, and he's clutching a stone idol that looks awfully familiar. The narrator manages to track down the sailor's personal diary, and what he reads confirms his absolute worst fears. Johansen's diary describes his ship being blown off course by that violent storm. And then they saw it. A city rising from the waves. A city that shouldn't exist. He struggles to describe it, saying, "The geometry was all wrong." Can you imagine that? A place where angles aren't right and perspective is a lie? This was the city from Wilcox's dreams, but it was real. This was Rylea. Rylea, the sunken city from the cult's chant. It all clicks into place. That massive storm on April 2nd, the same one that stopped the global wave of madness, it must have pushed the city up from the ocean floor. Wilcox's mind was acting like a beacon because the source of the signal, Cthulhu itself, was suddenly and terrifyingly closer to the surface. Johansen's story is just a descent into absolute horror. First, the storm blows them off course. That's the wrong turn. Then his crew, driven by a morbid curiosity, starts exploring this slime-covered city, and they open a giant door, the accidental awakening. What comes out isn't a god. It's a walking mountain of green ooze, tentacles, and pure cosmic evil. In a final desperate act, Johansen, the last man standing, rams the thing with his ship. He says it bursts, and then immediately starts to pull itself back together. As Arlie sank back beneath the waves, so did Cthulhu. But the damage was done. Johansen survived, but he was broken forever. And for our narrator, putting all these pieces together leads to a final, horrifying conclusion, not just about the world, but about his own life. He understands now. Professor Angel didn't die of a weak heart. His notes mention being jostled by a sailor in a crowd right before he died. And Johansen, the sailor, he also died under very mysterious circumstances. These weren't accidents. They were assassinations. The cult is real, it's active, and it silences anyone who knows its secrets. And now, he knows. And this is the terrifying reality of the situation. On one hand, the cosmic horror, Cthulhu, is back asleep. For now, Johansen's desperate attack actually worked. It bought the world some time because the stars aren't right. Yet. But on the other hand, the human horror, the cult, they never went away. They're still out there, hiding, waiting, and working to make sure that next time their master rises for good. And that leaves us with the real lingering horror. The monster might be dreaming, but its followers are wide awake. They're waiting. Our narrator now fears every shadow, knowing he's next on their list for simply piecing this all together. So the final question isn't just if the stars will be right again, but who among us is secretly praying that they will be.